Good morning. Thank you for staying. And I want to give a quick lecture because this is what I was told to do right now. And I will talk about innovations in Israel with the history of them, and I will highlight some that didn't come into the market, but in my opinion are very important innovations. So in the beginning of the country, when the early phase of Israel, agriculture was the most important thing, but the agriculture that could have been done there in the swamps and in the muds and in the desert had to be improved, and the Israeli agriculture people found ways to do it, and even developed better and more efficient plants and fruits like the tomatoes on a stem, much more corn in the, much more wheat in the corn, better honey, tropical food that you know, and so on. This was very successful, and in short time, the next innovation was to teach the other countries how to do it. So we did do it. The Mid-Eastern countries got a lot from it, and we lost a lot of markets. The jewel in the crown was the citrus. I show here only oranges, but it was also grapefruits and different types of the grapefruits and lemons and so on. So we had it means before me, a lot of very well cultivated orange groves. And again, we were very successful with it. In Europe, it was the best fruit. And they came to study from us. The innovation was to start courses of how to make better citrus. Not only courses in Israel, also farms, in beginning only in Europe, but then in Africa and South America also. So we lost this market too, because now they know to do it as well as we do. And I was rather surprised that recently, the last 10 years or so, after we lost, I met a friend of mine, Rafi Goren, and he told me he's working on citrus. And I thought, what can still be done? So what he's doing, he's looking at these particular connections. You see, it's very nice, very romantic, to have a piece of leaf near the orange, like here, like here, like here. But it's not very economical. It's not very economical for the picking, because we want to pick all of them together. And it's not very economical for packing and for maintaining. So he's now trying to regulate the growth using biotechnology and genetic engineering, regulate the growth and the control of the attachment of the fruit from the tree. And if this works, it's really an innovation. Second was using solar energy. Before the whole world did this. I don't want to talk much because now solar energy is everywhere. But when I was in Greece in the 80s, I saw on every house almost, the Israeli made solar energy heaters. And they told me, this is really wonderful. It means with this we also did something new. We have a sea, which is called the Dead Sea. Whoever was last night heard the president talking about it. In the 60s, it came into the attention of the scientists. You can see it from top here, you can see it from close. You see there is nothing grows here. No animal, no fruit, no flower, nothing, not even a little bush. And all this is salt that is coming out of the sea when it's being evaporated, because the sea is full of this salt. It was found by scientists that the Dead Sea is the well largest pool of lithium bromide. Lithium bromide is called LiBr. It's one of the salts that are used only for very, very specific usages, but they looked for new usages, and they found that in lithium bromide, collagen, which is the protein of the skin, can shrink to 2/3 of its original length. So they built a mechanochemical machine, which is you can see it here, two baths, one from lithium bromide and one of water, or the opposite. And when one of them shrinks, this wheels rotate and produce energy. Just wonderful. This project terminated when the inventor of it, Professor Achar, was assassinated. But anyway, it needed a lot of work. But it is recognized all over the world. Now it is shown in the British Museum for Technology in London. In the 70s, there was more interest in the Dead Sea, and two bacteria and one algae were discovered in the Dead Sea. So the algae is really liked by the Japanese. And the bacteria, first, why was bacteria looked at? I talked to the scientists, Vulcani and Ginsburg, that each of them found another bacteria. They say that they looked for bacteria because the Jordan River that comes to the Dead Sea is full of fish. And if there was no life at all, the fish should be at the bottom of the sea, like a big herring bucket. And they didn't find any fish. So they looked for someone that can eat the fish. And these are the bacteria. So it's interesting to find bacteria, but why are they part of innovation? So you can see it here, this pink, or you can see it here. So one reason was the Japanese that liked the algae, and the second, this is the bacteria that brought us to our discoveries. And maybe I have time to talk about it later. Current, there is a high-tech, Israel is called a startup nation, and all types of gadgets are being made. I was wondering, why only startup nation? I thought maybe there is a continuation. But indeed, a lot, not most, but a lot of the startups are being sold as they are, directly to very large companies. Like, for instance, the Diston key that nobody believed can work. So this is what's happening now, and I'm sure there are better experts to explain this. So I will go to biotech. And biotech means also our studies. So please stay with me for a few minutes, and I'll explain you why part of our studies can be considered innovation. So first of all, let me just tell you that proteins, all types of proteins, are performing nearly all of the essential function in life. In mammalian cells, they are the hair, insulin, hemoglobin, digestion of food, the sensory, seeing, hearing, it's all performed by proteins. So actually proteins, as I said earlier, perform the smooth needed breathing, digestion, and also responding to pressure like heat, cold shock, or immune response, or heart failure, and so on. In nature, structure means function, or function means structure. And I took a small example. Here are two paper clips that can do their job. I unfolded them, changed their structure. I didn't do anything else. I didn't dissolve them or rewound them, nothing. Just change the structure. Can they do the function? Yeah, they can't. Just structure. And this is the way proteins work. They have to have a specific structure. So I won't talk much about it. I will just say that the structure is carefully designed, and what they dictates, it's carefully designed by their sequence, and what dictates the sequence are the genes. And I think now I don't have to explain what is DNA, just to show you, this is full of genes. It's the molecule that carries the genes, that code for the proteins, and although the genes are in, it is a double helix, you all know that, but the genes which are these parts, every 3 of them is one gene, is one code within a gene, they are masked. So first thing, they are translated, you can see here, there is a DNA, it's being copied, so they are transcribed to a single chain, which is called RNA. It's not so important right now. And these are translated to proteins by the ribosome. So ribosome was our subject because people didn't know how ribosomes work when we started. A few words about ribosomes. They exist in every cell. There is a huge number of them. They work very fast. In mammalian, they can reach millions in one cell, 5 millions of them in one liver cell, for instance. And they are the largest cell component. Even in bacteria, when bacteria grows, numbers can come to 80,000 to 100,000. They can form 5 to 40 new bonds. When they make the protein, they connect a new building block to the already made part of the protein. They can make 5 to 40 of them in 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, I was a good student. I needed for one bond 6 hours. I was allowed to make a mistake according to the book. They make 1 to 1,000,000 mistakes. So now chemistry developed, so it's only 2 hours for a human being, but still up to 40 in a second by the ribosome. So the ribosome in our minds can be described as a factory that gets the instructions. This is the genetic code, which is being read here. A little energy is needed, and the building blocks are being brought by trucks. Now this building block will be connected to the newly born protein inside the ribosome, the factory, and the truck can go out and do the work it needs. So that's the way we explain what is ribosome, and we wanted to understand how this happens. So instead of talking much, I'll show you a movie. I hope that you can see it. The movie was done by us according to our results, together with 2 students of the Art Academy in Jerusalem. And meanwhile, it doesn't come. It's already 12 years old, and it's in YouTube, in case you want to see it at home, but it doesn't start. Oh, now it starts. So the genetic code is coming to the ribosome. All ribosomes are made of 2 subunits, a small and a large. So here is the small, accepting it, look, accepted it. Now it is within the small subunit. There are factors that make sure that it's correct, and the first track is being brought by another factor, and now both will go. And the large subunit comes and makes bridges and connects to the small one. Now, an active ribosome was created from the 2 subunits, and more building blocks can be brought by these tracks to this side. Peptide bond is being made here, decoding is being made there, and you see the ribosome helps, in, out, quick. Now we took out the large subunit, the in-out ends, so you can see just how the bond is being made. And you can also see that the newly born protein is progressing out through a tunnel in the large subunit, which also protects it and it can manipulate its progression. So here, you see the whole ribosome again, and it comes out, this protein comes out and can fold to its correct structure when it comes out of the tunnel. When there is a codon, when there is an instruction to stop, there is release factor and recycling factors. They are symbolized here by this gold, and this replaces the tracks. The 2 subunits can separate, look for a new job, the protein can go and do what it needs, and the tracks are going to look for another delivery. That's the whole story. And just I want the whole story just took 20 years to us and to some people that joined the story later. So where is the innovation here except for the science? For this, I have to tell you how did we start. So when we started, it was known that proteins are doing everything and the ribosomes make them. And when I said I want to understand how the ribosome functions, most of the scientific world say, oh, you must be kidding. They were laughing at me. All what we can be learned about ribosome is already known. And when I said I want to see the interior, they told me it's a black box. This is because many people tried to do it before me and failed. So where is the problems? First of all, in order to see detail, we need X-rays. There are no lenses and no microscope or man can see it, only X-rays. X-rays, there are no lenses for them, but they are diffracted. You can see, for instance, just disregard everything except for this line and the vectors that come out of it. Each vector is diffracted in a direction that is dictated by the structure. Some are long, which show high intensity, and some are short, and it's all directions. What we are doing, we are collecting from crystals the diffraction in all directions. You see one direction, we connect it with computers and with knowing how to do it, and we can work out the structure from it. But crystals are needed. And the failures of all the others were in crystallization. Because you can see here salt crystal, salt that we buy as crystal, the salt that we are using in the kitchen. But these difficult things, these very unstable things, very large, there was a big question mark, which was actually no. So they explained it because there is internal mobility and very complex and so on. I don't want to read all of it. Why did I start? When so many, 20 years, many groups failed. Because first I thought that the most important factor that doesn't let crystallization is the marked tendency to deteriorate. They fall apart within a few days, and crystallization takes longer. Okay, so I understood it. So why did I start? Because I was lucky to read a report from a delegation that went to see what happens to the bears when they sleep, the winter sleep, and they found that when the bears sleep, the ribosomes are packed inside their membranes. So ribosomes can be packed. Bears are doing it. Every bear, every winter, every cell, every ribosome. Human beings could not. So the second thing was to ask, why did the bear doing it? And in my opinion, they did it because when they get up from the winter sleep, they want to do all types of things they didn't do while they were asleep. And therefore, they have to keep a large pool of active ribosomes, and they do it by packing. So, okay, stress is inducing periodic packing. This was my suggestion, my conclusion, and therefore I decided to use ribosomes that live under stress, like in the Dead Sea. So we come back to the Dead Sea, or hot springs, or waste of nuclear facilities. Half a year it took, and we got the first microcrystals, and a few years later, really beautiful crystals, all of ribosomes, and we went to measure them. This was 6 years after we started. We went to a synchrotron. I'm not sure you all know what is a synchrotron. It's an accelerator that accelerates particles. This is the one in Grenoble, but there are many others. Inside it's very large, and it works by exciting or running quickly the particles. They run afterwards. They are accelerated here. They run afterwards through this ring, and there are stations where we can measure. Not only us, there are many usage, but we used it for structure. So we got wonderful diffraction. You see many spots to the edge. It means very high detail. Everything was really happy after 6 years of work. You can imagine the students jumping up and down from happiness, but not for long, for less than a second. The whole thing disappeared within that time. And this was, we tried it again and again, 200, 300 times, and we decided either we stopped or we looked at what happened to us. We thought we came from here, and before that we climbed an Everest. So we climbed and climbed and climbed until we saw that the real Everest is far away. So either to stop or to think. So we thought that the damage is made by two steps, one that we cannot avoid, the interaction of the beam with the crystal, and the other, the propagation. Propagation of damage needs energy. So if we cool the crystals, there won't be enough energy. So the breakthrough was actually flash cooling by cryo temperature, minus 200 more or less centigrade, which was considered impossible, another impossible. I cannot come now with all the justification, just to show you the experiment that was done at Stanford in '86. Look at my face. Doesn't say that I really believed in my own experiment. But this was Friday afternoon, and by Friday night, we found that crystals do not decay. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Friday night, this is when we discovered it. During that night and the day after, we got phone calls from the whole world. Please remember, 1986, no emails, hardly any phones. The whole world was surprised. And look how beautiful the diffraction was. And look how happy I am 20 years later. But not only me. Within, and this is here is the innovation. Within 4 months, the whole world started to use it. Until '87, I made here some statistics. From '72, when structures started to show up, until '87, 15 years, there were less than 100 structures in the whole world. Between '87 to 2002, another 15 years after we introduced it, the experiment was in November '86, we had already 20,000 structures, not we, but the whole world. And afterwards, 35,000. So it means now there are more than 50,000 structures. I have to tell you, there is, how do we know? There is a PDB, which is Protein Data Bank. Everybody that solved the structure must deposit the coordinates, so we know how many structures were done. And among these 55,000, 99% were done at cryo temperature, and 80% of them couldn't have done otherwise, and 70% of them are medically important or materially important that allowed the progress in these two very important areas. So even the Nobel Committee said this is our innovation. Okay? So the last point that I want to talk is resistance to antibiotics, which is a very serious problem for modern medicine. Natural antibiotics are the weapons of bacteria against bacteria, and because ribosomes are so important, 40% of them, of the clinically useful antibiotics, target them. They work as David worked against Goliath. Antibiotics are very small. Goliath was very large, by targeting important and exposed regions, for instance here in the small subunit, where the decoding happens or where a peptide bond is being made, when the bond. So instead of talking, there is another 1.5 minutes movie, which is based on the first one. And right away, I didn't expect, I am a basic scientist, and I didn't expect that my science will, right away, together with the discovery, will show also applicativity. So here is the RNA cannot bind, because a little antibiotic disturbs it. Just a little one. It's enough. There will not be protein biosynthesis here, it means the bacteria will die, the pathogen. Next is tetracycline that occupies the position of the second strand. The next one is erythromycin. Erythromycin is the first antibiotic that paralyzed ribosomes that came into usage in the 50s of the last century, about 70 years ago. Here it is sitting in the tunnel and doesn't let the protein pass. Only very little protein is being made and cannot pass. And the last that I want to show you doesn't let the bond being made. It's clindamycin, just goes into the bond. Here, you see? Check. Sitting here, no bond. So this is what we found, and this was the second reason of the Nobel Committee. Just, yeah, I will stop when I finish.
Don't stop.
Okay, I want to take a poll. Combating resistance antibiotic, because resistance antibiotic is very important, and I think that we can do only partially because bacteria want to live, but I want to show you what we are doing, which in my opinion is the future. So far, all what I showed you was from models, ribosomes of models for pathogens. They are very similar, but they are not perfect. And this is because each pathogen which becomes a resistance or multi-resistance has its own not binding properties, not so much binding properties, but resistance properties. So therefore, we went over to first step and started to crystallize ribosomes from pathogens. This was not easy, 6 years, and we have now a structure. And I want to show you just this last point. Here there are two structures of a model and of the real pathogen in blue and in gray. And a little component here. It seems that both of them can bind the same way, but if I put the whole volume of this little component, you can easily see that the gray will not bind well. There will be collisions. And the blue not only binds wonderfully, but also makes a gate that this cannot go out. And we hope that these tiny differences are the meaningful differences between non-pathogens and pathogens. And we want to design accordingly antibiotics. And I want you to keep your fingers crossed with us. The European community already decided to support it. Now I have a lot of other, and I won't show you, I will just show you because I will stop. But I want to show you just the very last slide. I want to show you my granddaughter, which is as important as my science. She, in 2008, said that I'm very busy, but I have time for her, and she appreciated it. She gave me a real nice prize. So this is the Nobel medal. In my opinion, this is at least as important. The grandma of the year is Yonath, and when I asked her which year, she said, reprove yourself every year, and otherwise I'll take it off the wall. So 9 years passed and it's still on the wall. Yesterday I heard that people told me that ribosomes are not interesting. So I want to tell you that they became really popular. Here is me in Purim in a carnival, and she is a ribosome. Even young children become ribosomes. This is what happened to me by one of the artists in Israel, Michel Kishka. And if you look at it very carefully, this is the small subunit and the large subunit, and a new antibiotic in his mind. And thank you very much.